Okay, so as we are today discussing about one more important topic from Python, which are loops. So yeah, so as I said previously, today we'll be only discussing the loops as we are back from a couple of weeks, and from next classes onwards, we'll be focusing on one or two topics and the practical examples around those topics. And they said one of my colleagues she will cover SQL and Power BI. One of my another colleague he will cover machine learning part parallelly. You guys need to be prepared well from tomorrow for every class before coming to the session. So as I said, loops are very important in any programming language, be it Python, be it Java, JavaScript, or any programming language. Loops have one of the core important parts of any programming. Whenever we are working on any kind of ML machine learning scenarios or data science scenarios, or we are solving any kind of Python programming or analytical programming, loops are very important. From the Python, we will have two kinds of loops that I'm going to discuss. One is for loop, another one is while loop. To give uh, much more context around the loops, as I said, loops can be used to tell a program to execute statement repeatedly, which means we can tell to our system that okay, run this particular command these many times, so that loop it run as a loop, it will automatically count each iterative until that particular statement is true. We will walk you through a couple of examples at the end of the sessions, just to keep remember the loops are which means whenever we want to execute any task, right? So we will use loops and execute them in a sequential manner. Let's say, for example, if you want to say hi to 10 of your friends, right? So we don't need to write 10 times the code, right? So we can use one time code, we can repeat the process, right? In the same way, we will, whenever we are doing any programming, and we will get these kind of scenarios where we're going to use certain portion of logic and we want to repeat that logic in over time. In those cases, we're going to use loops. And in from Python, we will have two kinds of very important loops. One is for loop, another one is while loop. And we do have another one is called nested loop. That is not much important at the moment for us to understand the basics of loops concept and able to solve couple of problems that we're gonna see. These two topics are very important. One is for loop, another one is while loop. So if you look at the for loop is uh, the simple difference between for and while loop is whenever we are using for loop, we will know how many times we want to repeat the loop, right? Let's say, for example, I want to repeat the loop these many times, which means I want to send wedding invitation to 100 members. I want to send my birthday invitation to 200 members. That which means when we know the count, when we know the how many times we want to run the loop, in those cases we can use for loop. But when it comes to while loop, here the difference here is we don't know how many times we want to run, but at some point of time we will know the some condition, right? Okay, until this condition, okay, execute this loop, right? So in those cases what we do is we use this for loop and while loop. And as you can see this flow chart here, I remember I have explained the flow charts previously as well, for better understanding. You see here we have a for loop where we will start the logic and we will check the count, which means the last item as end. If no, it will count the it will go for again in the loop, which means whenever we are working on the for loop, it will know that okay, how many times it has to work. Let's say, for example, if you specify 100 times, it will only work until 100 times or 1,000 times or 1 million times. Here you see couple of examples counting values from 1 to 10, which means the for loop which only count values from 1 to 10. And I want to do this task 5 times. In those cases, we can use for loop, which means why we know how many times we want to execute this loop, right? That's the reason here we use for loop. In another side, we have while loop. So the condition for while loop is we know that we want to execute the loop, but we don't know how many times it has to execute, right? In those cases, we can use while loop. And if you look at the some of the examples you're gonna see, during the coding practice, but understanding theoretically, you see sometimes whenever we are entering the password, right? If we enter wrong password, what will it allow? Will the system allow us to enter? No, right? It will say, please enter the correct password, which means back end there is a loop that will check our password with our correct, the correct right password. So when those two passwords are matching, then only that system will allow us to log into the website or whatever we are doing, and playing game until the game over, right? Which means I don't know how many times I'm gonna play this game, but I'll play this game until the game is finished. So keep trying until you succeed, right? Which means that's the difference. Like for loop, we know how many times we want to execute, but when it comes to while loop, we don't know how many times we're gonna execute, but we will have one condition. If that condition matches as true, then we will end the loop. That's the reason if you look at the flow chart here, we have start, and what it gonna do is it's gonna check the condition. If it is true, it will again repeat. If it is false, it will end the loop. So this is a simple difference between for loop and while loop. And in the concept of loops, we need to remember two kinds of control statements for loops. One is break, another one is continue. We will see some scenarios like we want to end the loop or we want to continue the loop. For example, if you see here in general terms, so break help us to break something, and continue which help us to skip in the loops. If you see here, if you see this example here, if number equal to 5, break, which means there's the condition. What it does is it will check for that particular number whether it is equal to 5 or not. If it is 5, it will break the loop, which means it will not execute from that point of time. But we have another keyword called continue. What it does is it will skip that part. Okay, if it is 5 or if it is 3, continue. I don't want to execute anything here. So go to number 4, which means, we're going to see some examples, but try to remember break, keyword break loop. In the loop break, which will help us to stop the conditional execution that we are going to do, kind of iteration. But when it comes to continue, it will help us to skip that part, go for next iteration. And if you see here flowchart here, assume that we are starting at this point and we're going to have loop start. So when we use break, it will exit the loop. But when we use the continue, it will skip the that that iteration. It will go for next iteration. And when we pass, okay, it will go for next statement, and it will go for end of the loop. These two, this pass is like a one more keyword we have in the concept of Python, where it will go for next statement. So it will not execute that portion of the part, but it will go for next execution, and again it will repeat until the condition is true or false, and it will end the loop. To recap, so for loop tells us how many times we want to execute the that statement or the code. When it comes to while loop where we're gonna set one condition, it will run until that point of time. If that condition is matches as we set what we're gonna put there, then it will that when it will end the loop. The best example for while loop is entering the password, right? So if until unless if you don't enter the correct password, system will not allow you to let you in, right? In the same way, it's kind of a while loop. Back end, it's takes while loop. Okay, user has to enter the correct password, then only I will let user into login or sign up, whatever. depends on the task there. And to understand for loop more, so there are the five important stages whenever we are initializing the for loop. Remember that one is initialization, which means we need to specify what we want to do. Okay, then assignment. So we need to track how many times the loop is repeating, which means the first available item is assigned to the loop variable, which means, let's say for example, when you select one item, we need to keep tracking those items. Then execution, which means the loop will runs n number of times based on the count. Then update, which means we need to update every time. So let's say for example, this portion is done. Okay, so next we need to go for another portion. Okay, again another portion, which means we need to here keep tracking the number, how many times it is repeating. Then termination, which means I want to run this loop 1 million times, right? If the count is 1 million, I'm going to terminate this loop. I mean, we can terminate the execution. So it automatically ends the execution once it matches to the point that we're gonna set there. And here the syntax that generally we use in Python. So we start initializing with for. For is like for loop using this keyword where in iteration, which means here we need to specify what items we want to iterate, whether we want to iterate list of values, or we want to iterate tuples, or we want to iterate dictionary values. Depends on the data we have, we can iterate anything. Let's say for example, if you have data frame, we can convert the data frames columns into the list of values, and we can start iterating the values. We're going to walk you through some of the real-time examples with the loops, and using for loop and while loop, you'll understand more clearly. Then you see here we have different statements, right? So okay, statement one, what it has to check. Statement two, okay, once it's true, what it has to do, right? Which means we need to specify a list of steps what we have to do. Then we'll have else, which means if these conditions are true, execute this. If not, execute this, right? So it's a very simple, like we need to set, okay, how many times this loop has to execute, and we need to put, okay, one variable to keep tracking of, okay, how many times the loop is executing. Then we need to update the loop that we're gonna put. Okay, this loop ran 1 million times, right? So we need to terminate the loop. In those cases, the system automatically will terminate that part. And you might ask some questions. Okay, loops are very important. How we're going to use loops in machine learning, how we're going to use loops in like generative AI or data science, right? Let's say for example, you are training ML model, right? So which means whenever you are training ML model, so we're going to have list of parameters. So you will understand what are the parameters, what is training in future classes. But try to remember, loops are very important at every stage. That you are going to work any project, even for simple or big project, you're going to use loops. And here you see one of the best example for, I took it online. Best way to present how we use loops in every time. You see here I have learning rates, which learning rates in the sense assume that some values. And you see here, I want to train my model, these many times. You see here, I want to train my models with this value, and this value, right? So here you see, I am passing in the first iteration, I am passing value here. In the second iteration, I am passing value here, and my third iteration, I am passing value here. Then I'm printing the accuracy, which means at 0.001, I can see that, okay, what is the model accuracy. At a zero point 0.1, what is the model accuracy. And at zero point 0.5, what is the model which means you see here we have list of values, right? We are passing this list of values by using for loop, and we are seeing the accuracy for each value. So maybe one value will give the best accuracy, right, among the remaining values. So in those cases, we can select that value, and we can start doing the model training part. You see, this is the one best example in machine learning when we are working with the loops. At same times, if you see here, this is only one example. If you look at this picture here, is this a training loop, right? Whenever we are doing any model training, we're gonna pass so many number of parameters, right? So which means model has to select, it's kind of a permutations and combinations, right? It will select one point from that particular parameter, another point from another parameter. It will start executing the model training. At end, we will have, okay, which parameters have performed well, which parameters have good accuracy, right? It's, in those cases we can use these kind of concepts, the loops concepts, and we can we can start implementing in the real time projects as well. So then that's about for loop. Then when it comes to while loop, as I said, the core difference between for loop and while loop is, for loop, we know how many times we want to execute the loop, how many times we want to execute the code. But when it comes to while loop, we don't know how many times we want to execute. And here we will know, the condition, right? When the condition is true, then only it will terminate the process. So that's the reason, for loop it's fine, but whenever you are using while loop, be careful that sometimes it's going to be indefinite, which means it's keep on running, keep on running, keep on running until that statement is true. That's the reason, if you see here, while loops execute code repeatedly as long as specified conditions remains true, which means I want to run my loop until that particular condition is true, right? So in those cases, we can use while loop. And you might ask questions, okay, when should we use the for loop and when should we use while loop? And you see the difference. So whenever we are looking at the problem statement, if we know how many times that loop has to execute, so when we know that count, we can use for loop. And sometimes we will not know, right, how many times that code has executed or loop has executed, right? In those cases, we can set condition that, okay, I want to execute, this particular block of code until this condition set to be true, which means, okay, I want to execute this code until the password is correct, or until the pin is correct, the r until this, any example that you take, like card number or anything. So that's the reason, whenever you are using while loop, be careful that you must specify the set condition, otherwise it will keep on running. And you see here some of the initialization same as for loop, but only one difference here is we need to have a condition that what it has to done after this. But again, we initialize the loop, we check for the condition, and we update the loop. That's the only simple difference we have for while and for and a while loop. And as I said, we do have some drawbacks with while loop that I was mentioning previously, where we need to specify that condition, right? So if condition is not changing, it will run indefinitely. Which means if you see here, whenever we are using for loop, we use for keyword. Whenever we are using while, we use while keyword. While true, print still running, print whatever or do whatever, okay, the code block will do something. But you see, are we not doing, we are not doing anything here, right? So which means it will keep on running all the tasks what you have specified here. It will not go for remaining task, right? So that's the reason, whenever you are specifying the while loop, you need to be very careful that you need to have the conditions that needs to be true, otherwise the code is keep on executing. What happens, let's say for example, it will run 2 million times, the system gonna use 100% of your CPU, right? And sometimes it leads for potential system crashes, right? Which means when it is keep on repeating. And if you see here, I mean, some more some more concerns we need to be remembered before performing any these kind of loops. And whenever, let's say for example, when we forgot to define the condition or controlled variable, which means then that loop will keep on executing this scenario. And this is one of the best example I found, you see here, the first portion here we have, we have we have variable equal to 1. Okay, so you see here, this is my condition. I want to execute, okay, until this condition is to be true, which means, if you see here, what's happening here is, here a equal to 1, we have here while 1 less than 10, which means 1 less than is 10, true, right? So it will print a. Then here we are doing increment by 2, which means 1 plus 2, 3. It comes here, right? Then 3 less than 10, right? True. And again it will execute. And 3 plus 2, 5. Again it will come here, 5 less than 10. That's correct. It will execute this in no this part, and again it will do incremental update. Then it will be 7, 7 less than 10. Again it will come here, and it will doing again plus 2, and it will be 9, 9 less than 10. Okay, and it will print that value. Again it will do 11, 11 less than 10, false. It will break the loop. Okay, so that's the reason you see here, it will break the loop here. Okay, again if you see here, one more example here we have. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to print the even number or odd number, right? So in those cases, I'm initializing the variable called a equal to 1, 1 less than 7. Very good, it's true. Okay, I'm specifying one more condition. If 1 divided by 2 equal to 0, which is even number, else odd number. So then I am doing incremental update. You see here again, here 1, 2, 2 divided by 2 is a even number, and then print a is the 2 is even number, and again it will do incremental update. 3, 3 is an odd number. Again 4, 4 is an odd number. 5, 5 is odd number. 6, 6 is an even number. And 7, 7 less than 7, it's going to be false, because we didn't specify 7 less than or equal to, right? So you see, these are the some of the examples that we're gonna see using loops. And this one, I mean, we discussed this previously, about the conditional statements and all this, but just to give some refresh, because the examples that we're going to work on from this Jupyter notebook more focused on these. So if you see here, we have if statements, where we're going to have, if the condition is true, execute this block of the code, and else return this. And we'll have if else, we'll have nested if else, and we will have else if, which means we have under if we will have one more condition, again one more condition, again one more condition, depends on the problem scenario we have. Yeah, that's all from views, I mean, sorry, loops. Any questions?
No, Padu. Everything was clear.
Yeah, Jyoti, do you have any questions?
No, Amma.
Let me open the Jupyter notebook. Let me reshare my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So as we have understand that, okay, loops are important, and we have seen two types of loop. One is for loop, another one is while loop, and we do have nested loop. That is not important in the point of ML scenario or data science scenario, but the for loop and while loop are very important. And you see here, These are the some concepts that some gonna code snippets that we're gonna work on um, uh, to understand more practically about loops. So the first one we have here is, as I said previously, so we start using a loop by initializing the for, which means if it is for loop, we use this keyword here to initialize the loop. And for I in range, which means the range will tell us, okay, how many it will create the values until this how many times we are specifying here. So when I execute this here, you see here, so we got values from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So why it didn't print 5? Which means, remember, in the previous classes also we discussed it will exclude the last value. So if you want to include the 5 also, then uh, then start putting 6 there, which means it will not consider the last value. It will only give, it will not exclude the last value. So these are the common syntax we have to initialize the loop. For I in range, which means the range which will help us to create the range of values based on this the value that we are going to give, and it will print those values. Okay, so let's say for example, if I specify 11 here, we're gonna see values from, okay, 0 to 10. And then with using the same range, here we can specify the start point and end point, right? You see here we are just specified, okay, I want to print values until, okay, this value until 11. No, sometimes we will have some situations, right? So what situations? Okay, I want values from, 100 to 200. I want values from 10 to 20. I want values from 30 to 40, right? So in those scenarios, we can specify this again range, what is the starting point and what is the ending point, which means when I run this one, you see here, I'm getting values from sorry, 2 to 6, which means here we have what we have specified. We want values from 2 to 7, which means Python exclude the last value. So then it will print only until 6. So in some cases, right? In some cases, here you see all values are sequential, right? Sometimes you want values increment by 1. By default it is 1. Sometimes you want to increment, right, values by 2, values by 3, values by 4, right? In those cases, what we're gonna have here is, we will have start value, we will have end value, and we will have new option called step. What it tells us is, okay, I want to get values from 0 to 10 by 2, which means for you will get 0 to 4, the difference of 2. And also at same time, you can start doing the negative step as well. But whenever you are specifying the negative step here, be careful that you need to specify endpoint first and start point next, and you need to specify the condition, the step condition here. You see here, we have values from 0 to 4, 6, 8 for this block of code. And when it comes to this negative step, you see here we're getting the values in the reverse order from 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, be mindful that whenever you are using this negative uh, condition, so we need to specify the orders in a reverse way. Okay, so then, okay, so you see here we can still iterate, okay, loops using any string words. So for example, you see here I have word equal to Python, right? What it does is, for character ch in what, which means all these are characters, right? So first it will print p, it will print y, t, h, o, n. So if I execute this, you see here P Y T H O N. Okay. So in the same way, here you see here I have specified string, right? Here I have specified list. You see here, I want to access 10 for n in. So in means from this list, from n in nums. 10, 20, 30. You see here, which means we need to specify from the syntax, if you can recall. So we will have this loop and we will have the iterative item here. It could be anything, right? It could be string, it could be list, it could be set, it could be dictionary. So we can specify anything here. So I mean, some more little bit concept. I mean, conceptually bit examples here. You see here, if you see here, problem statement here. I want to print sum of numbers from 1 to n, which means n could be anything. Which what does it means here is, if you see here, so what is the sum of values? Okay, so that's what this condition is true, right? You see here, I have specified n equal to 10. So as I said, what I have mentioned previously, we need to keep track. Okay, how many times, okay, this loop is running for I in range. You see here, what I'm trying to do here is I am specifying starting point, right? One. Okay. So what happens if we don't specify one here? It will start executing from zero, right? So that's the reason here I have specified one, one comma. What is my end point here? What is the end value here? 10, right? So here it is going to be 10 plus 1, which means 11. I assume that here we have 11. Okay. Here we have 11. So first we will have 1. Okay. 1 plus 0, 1. Right. It will print. So it will update this value. Okay. So in the second iteration, the value going to be 2. So here the value going to be 1, right? So here 1 plus 2, 3. 3 plus 2, 6. Like that, it will repeat until we get the sum of values. To understand more practically, let me print some of the values here. It's going to be I print total. Okay, you see here, first it is running to first time, right? It considered 1. So it, at first point, what is the total value? 0. So then here we are doing 1 plus 1 here, right? 1 plus 1, what is the value? 2, right? That which means the value going to be 1. So which, and then we will have 2, right? Here the value going to be 2. What is the total here? It's going to be 1. 2 plus 1, how much? 3, right? You see, that's how the loop is, keep on repeating over and over again. Then we have one more example. You see, I want to count vowels in a string, right? So let's say, for example, you in maybe in future when you are working on any NLP domain, or based on the generative AI, you might see some, you might have to work on this most on text based data set, and you want to perform some checks before doing any model training. So in those cases, you see here, okay, count vowels in a string. What are the vowels? We have A, E, I, O, U, right? So let's do this. So we have this text called data science. Okay. So at first start, I have specified count equal to 0. Okay. For character ch in text. Okay. So first I have selected this. The loop will select this. Okay. If ch dot lower, why we have used lower here is, sometimes d can be capital, sometimes t can be small, or sometimes t can be capital. That's the reason when you specify lower here, which means it will convert into small letters. Okay, d dot lower in AEIOU, which means if d is not in AEIOU, right, then it will not update. Okay, so then it will go for next word. What is the next word we have here? A. If ch in AEIOE, yes, sorry, if A in AEIOE, okay, so yes, it's true. If it is true, it will start updating value by 1, right? Then it will go for T, again it will go for A, again it will go for S, it will go for C, and again it will go for I. I exit, yes, again it will start printing the value. You see here, here we got output 5. Why we have 5? You see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means A repeated 2 times, I repeated 1 time, E repeated 2 times. The count is 5. Total number of value, total number of vowels in the particular string is 5. Like this you can start know understand how these loop concepts that we're going to use in real time scenarios. Then one more example here we have, you see here, find the largest number in the list, which means, let's say for example, here I have given the list, right? So I want to find what is my largest element, right? So again, you see here the structure is same. So, okay, we're gonna have we're gonna have the loop, we're gonna have the condition. If condition is true, execute this, and we need to know how many times we want to execute the loop. So here what I'm trying to do here is, so initially I have created largest. Okay, so by default I have set my first index is my largest value. Okay, so what is gonna happen here is, for x in nums, okay, the first value of nums is 3. If 3, you know, greater than largest, then update largest equal to x, which means 3 greater than 3 false 3. Okay, again 18, 18 greater than 3, which means again then the largest is going to be 18 here, because when you compare this value with another value, this is the largest value, right? So it will the 18 gonna be updated here. Then what value we will have? We will have 7 here. Okay, it will check 7 greater than 18 false, right? So this condition will not execute because the condition is false, right? So if it is true, it will execute. If it is false, it will not execute this part of the code. So until this moment, what is the largest value in the largest variable? Going to be 18, right? So which means 7, 7 greater than 18, which is the false statement. This if condition will not execute. So what value we will have next? 25. 25 is greater than 18. It is true. Okay, in that, okay, it is true, which means we need to update the largest variable here, then largest equal to x, which means here this largest variable will have 25 because it passes this condition, right? We are replaced with this value again. Then again, it what it will do is that it will go for the last value, right? Okay, 9 greater than 25, which is false. So then it will not execute this loop. Okay, so then when I run this command, you see here I am getting the value 25. Okay, like this you can use loops, you can use these conditional statements, to perform any kind of task. Again, here we have one more example. So I want you to print values from 1 to 10, right? So you see here, for I in range, we know what range will does this, right? Okay, I want values from 20, I want values from 1 to 20. So that is the reason I have specified 21. Okay, the loop gonna print values from 1 to 20. And what is my problem statement here? I want only the even numbers, which means I need to have one more condition to check the value that I am passing here is matching this particular condition or not. Okay, so 1 divided by 2 is false, right? That's going to be odd number. 2 divided by 2 true, which means even number. 3 false, 4 false, right? So like that, you see here we will have until 20. So let's assume that as I said, right? So we can uh, specify this loop n number of times. When I specify, you see here I'm getting the sorry, you see here I'm getting the all the values here. You see here, if you see the loop is too big, you see here I'm getting the values. That's the reason we can repeat this task n number of times. Okay, so that's the reason in those cases we can use simply loops to overcome this. So, and when I was explaining some of the concepts, right, loops and while during the presentation, I have mentioned the nested loop as well, which means what does nested loop tells us is inside loop, we're gonna have another loop, which means you see here, here I have for I in range of 1 to 10, right? Then inside that I have one more loop for j in one range of 1 to 10. Okay, and inside that I am performing some operations here. Print I into j, which means it's kind of a permutations, right? We will have series of value, we'll have 1 to 10 in a series. Okay, again we will have one more series, which means the first value like 1 into 1, 1 into 2. Okay, 1 into 3, 1 into 4, 1 into 5, 1 into 6, 1 into 7 until 10, right? Again it will go for second value, 2 into 1, 2 into 2, 2 into 3, 4, 5. Again it will go for 10 times, right? So 10 into 1, 10 into 2, 10 into 3, 10 into 8, 10 into 9, right? Like that, we will creating a list of permutations here. So when I execute this one, you see here, the beauty here is it's kind of a multiplication table, right? So 1 into 1, 1, 1 into 2, 2, 1 into 3. Again, 2 into 1, 2, 2 into 2, 3, 6, 8. Okay, for third table, right? For fourth, you see here, these are the next loops works. Okay, so but again, next loops are important, but in the point of machine learning, in the point of generative AI, in very rare scenarios, you see these kind of nested loops concepts. Okay, which is nothing but you see, okay, whenever we are creating a loop inside another loop, in those cases we call it as a nested loop. Okay, so then we're gonna hear with some more examples here. You see here, okay. Let's say for example, if I ask you to filter only the positive words, assume that okay, you have conducted some survey about your company, okay, and people have entered, different values. Some are entered their age, right? Some are entered the age in negative value. Some are entered their salaries in negative value. So assume that in those scenarios, okay, you want to only filter only positive values, right? So what I'm trying to do here is for x, this can be initialized or anything. You can use I, or you can use Jyoti name, or you can use Surya name here. It is just initializer. You can use any name here. For x in nums, okay, it will select first value. Okay, and then if x greater than 8, if it is greater than 8, sorry, if it is greater than 0, then print x. What it does, 5 greater than 0, it will print 5, but minus 2 no, this no, 7 minus 9. And when I execute this, you see here 573, right? So that's the reason using these loops, you can do anything based on your problem statement. And you see here we have one more problem statement. You see, try to understand. Okay, I have explained about loops and while loops, but here I am giving some real-time examples how we can use this loops, how we can use this while loop or for loop in real-time scenarios. And you see here we have list of emails. Okay, here we have list of emails and print only those contains at the rate. Okay, let's say for example, you have your manager gave you the list of values, right? And he wants to only see emails which has only at the rate. So in those cases, you can't manually check each email, okay, whether this email has at the rate or not, right? Which means let's assume that you have 1 million emails. You can't run this task repeatedly 1 million times, right? So what you can simply do for loop like this, okay, for e in emails, as I said, this can be anything. It's just initializer. If if at the rate in e only print that no that email id you see here. So this one has at the rate, this one don't have at the rate, and this has at the rate. Okay, like this you can use loops and conditional statements in different scenarios. And you see here we have one more statement here. We have a list of integers values. Okay, we have list of integers value, and we have threshold value. Okay, which means threshold value count how many numbers are greater than threshold value. Okay, so basically what we have here is we have numbers. Okay, we have some threshold value. Okay, I want to count how many numbers have passed this threshold value, which means basically understand this scenario in another way. You have salaries and you have threshold values. Okay, I want to count how many employees have greater than 25K. Okay, or how many employees are greater than 10K. Okay, try to understand the real time scenarios. Okay, what you're gonna do here is you're gonna initializing the count equal to 0. Again, you start for loop for x in nums. If x greater than threshold, do incremental update for count. What it does is 3 greater than 8 false, it will not execute. 10 greater than 8 true, which means it will start doing count. At end of the loop, you see here we have only two values which are greater than 8. What are those? 10 and 15. So like this, you can start using these loops in a different scenarios. Let's walk you through another example we have here. Okay, you see here this problem statement. You have item prices in cart. Okay, I have item prices in the cart. Okay, if okay the total purchase value, okay, greater than 30. Okay, if the total purchase value is greater than 30, which means if it the total purchase value greater than 30, they should eligible for free delivery. Okay, then delivery fee applies, which means assume that okay, you have e-commerce website, right? People start coming to your place and they start purchasing your products, right? So you want to keep track, okay, how much they're purchasing. Okay, if any customer is spending more than 100 pounds or more than 150 pounds, okay, then backend your model, this kind of logics will start running. Okay, it will check that value. Okay, it will check that value, and if that value is greater than this threshold value, then we will start offering free deliveries, which means it's kind of a scenarios where you can use these kind of loops and conditional statement. You see here free delivery for what so for prices and prices here one second yeah, let me run this. Okay, so free delivery, which means the total purchase is greater than, if you see the total purchase is greater than 50, so which means the customer is eligible for a free delivery. Okay, so let's say for example if I make it 0, and if I make it 0, so which means I assume that one more scenario. Okay, customer came to website 3 times, but he only purchased this much amount, which means okay, this customer is not valuable customer to me, right? So then I'm gonna charge delivery fee from this customer. Okay, assume that Jyoti came to the website and she started buying the products. And if you see in those scenarios, when we run this algorithm, okay, when we run this logic, this flow chart, okay, it will start giving free delivery, which means what I have said, if the total cart value is greater than 50, okay, I'm going to offer free delivery. Otherwise, I'm going to charge for delivery. Again, one more example here we have, and you see here we have these applications, right? In, let's say for example, in iPhone or in any Android applications where we keep tracking the times, right? So Instagram we spend 40 minutes, and YouTube we spend 40 minutes, WhatsApp's 20 minutes, games 20 minutes. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is if my screen time is more than 120 minutes, so it will automatically should stop. I know the mobile should stop working, should not work, right? Which means when you put some time limits, right? So in those cases, those scenarios, it will work. You see here, okay, 40 to 50, 90 minutes, and 110 minutes. So at after this, whenever I'm playing games, right, I crossed 120 minutes. So that's the reason you see here limit crossed at games. Okay, you need to stop here, because as per your threshold value, you can only eligible to use your phone 120 minutes. Okay, so you crossed your limit, so we are not allowing you to use phone. That's the reason you can't even play the games. Like that, you can create different scenarios. Even if you see the example you have seen, this e-commerce website, the prices website, or this website, So we use loops, we use these conditional statements every day, every times. Okay, again you see here, one more banking example. I took it here. You see here, let's say for example, you are entering your ATM card, incorrectly. Okay, so many number of times. Okay, you want to purchase something, but you are mistakenly entering your values, wrongly. So you see here, uh, okay, this whenever you are entering the values, you see every time it's saying fail, success, fail, fail, fail. Okay, so backend, okay, any bank, okay, they'll start monitoring your scenario. Okay, if I want, okay, let's see this account. What I'm trying to do is print account log. If there are three fails in a row, which means I want to see if there are three fails in a scenario. Okay, so in those cases, I want to log this account, which means you see here how many times here we have. Okay, we have here five times. Okay, what is my threshold here? Only three. Okay, so then bank will send again notification saying that your account is locked, because by saying all these reasons, which means you tried to attempt three times, it was failed. That's the reason, for the security purpose we locked your account, right? So try to understand different scenarios using these loops. So then we'll talk about no while loop. So as I said, whenever you are using for loop, we specify for, right? But whenever we are using while loop, we specify while. Okay. So what's the problem statement here? I want to print values from 1 to 5. Okay. So stop when number greater than 5. You see here, I want to print values from 1 to 5. For this problem, we can use for loop as well, right? Which means I know I want to print values from 1 to 5, but here still we can use no while loop. Okay, so here I have called a variable called initializer n equal to 1. Okay, while n less than or equal to, which means what is the value? First value here is 1. 1 less than or equal to 5, which is true, and it will start executing this part. Okay, so here 1 plus 1 equal to 2, which means what the, so then the n value going to be 2. So 2 less than or equal to 5, true. 2 plus 1, 3. 3 less than or equal to 5. Okay, it will comes here, it will execute this part. Okay, 3 plus 1, 4. 4 less than or equal to 5. It will print the value, and it will do the incremental update. And 5 less than or equal to 5, which is true. Then when I run this snippet, you see here, I am able to see the values from 1 to 5, right? So like this, you can use loops, you can use the, sorry, for loop, you can use while loop, depends on the scenario. Okay, so the another best example that I was explaining through the presentation is the way you enter the password, right? Assume that you try to log into your app, you try to log into one of your account on the internet, right? Where you have to do login, right? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna enter your email ID, and you need to enter your password, right? If you enter the wrong password, do you think that system will let you in, right? No, right? It will not let you in until you enter the correct password. So in those cases, if you see here, so what I'm trying to do here is, this is my password, Python 123. So if if you see here, when I entered correct password, it will print access granted. Now I am intentionally entering the wrong password. You see here, please enter correct password, right? That's what you see in the websites. When you enter the wrong password, it will say please enter the correct password, right? So what happens again if I enter the wrong password? You see again, it keep on asking, right? It will keep on asking, okay, please enter the correct password. You have entered the wrong password. So when I start entering the password, you see access granted, which means I can log into my system like this. So these are the real-time examples, loops, right? We can use while loop, we can use for loop in a different scenario, and at different places. And another example here is in the elevators, right? So let's say, for example, you define a system that, okay, it need to check, okay, when user get into the elevator, when they pressed value 8. Okay, if elevator is in on floor 2, okay, it has to go to 8, right? Which means whenever it is crossing these floors, it will keep tracking the count. Okay, okay, 3 crossed. Okay, again we have to go 8, right? So which means to here what I'm trying to do here is current not equal to target, right? It is true, right? Okay, then it will start doing this incremental update. If current less than target, count plus 1, which means I need to go from 2 to 8, right? So it will start doing incremental. If it is less than that, it will start doing the values. You see here, which means from second to it went to 4, it went to 5, it went to 6, and it went to 8. So that's our target value we have specified. Maybe in future, some apartments will have 100, no, building has 100 apartments, sorry, 100 floors. You see here, we can use these kind of scenarios, okay, in different places, at different places, and we can start using this again. Using this while loop, you can do so many number of things, right? But be careful that whenever you are using while loop, okay, so you need to be very careful, right? Let's say for example, what happens, assume that, let me create one more snippet here. You see here, let's say for example, when I specify true, right? So it just a true, right? So when I specify some password here, you see here, even I am entering the correct password, you see, it is asking, right? So which means, so that's the reason when I was explaining that, right? You see here the star represents is this code, this block of code is still running. It will not terminate, right? That's the reason whenever you are using while loop, right? You need to be very careful that you need to have a system that should able to check that whether particular condition is true or false. You see, this is the best example. You see, it's still running. So if I don't cancel this, if I don't stop this, it will keep on running, okay, until I cancel this statement. Again, even though I'm entering the correct password, right? You see, it is still asking, please enter the correct password, which means what we have done here is, what's the difference here is, you see the condition. Okay, we didn't specify the condition. That's the reason it keep on running without any breaks. So again, I need to close here, and then you see here I'm getting the big error, right? So again, be careful whenever you are using while loop, and we need to have that the true condition. Like if that is true, it will has to execute, otherwise it will has to break. So these are all from loops. Any questions?
No.
No, Padu.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen, and let me start recording. Stop the recording.